Salom, salom, salom. Hello and welcome to TABILA podcast. I am Dr. Mina and today's episode is deeply personal. We have a saying in our language, Adab, in Janazakhana. And I thought about it very carefully. And of course, with permission, I want to talk about. And I have no idea how it will play in a podcast format, but I would like to do this. It comes from my heart. And I want to pay a tribute, perhaps the way how I know it, and I'm going to do it in English, and then maybe on a segue too, I will switch to Shugni language or any language. Maybe once I start talking, it will come and I'll explain. But some of you may know that recently I posted a picture, an image of my brother, who actually we lost on November 20th. So the news carried on the heartbreaking story of the tragic passing of Brother Osama Al Shafar in Tajikistan. As every news was just fading around, the moment I saw it through the news channel, I saw the image, only a picture, and then my heart began to race. As a sister, I'm always vigilant and always on a watch when it comes to my brothers and brothers who I also call from other culture. The one that called me a sister, and I call them a brother, to the highest level of respect and dignity that we carry. Brother Osama Al Shafar is Emirati brother, and he is part of our family. He is very close to my brothers. And the news is a sorrow news. Any tragedy affects me deeply because I am a human, and I guess I am a human with a heart. To the world, the news channels, they talked about Mr. Osama Al Shafar, may be described in printed lines and headlines and big words. But I'm not going to go into big words. I speak from what I personally witnessed through the camera lens, a moment that will remain with me forever. In 2022, there was a paracycling that came with a lot of news headlines that it's going to be more international level and standards, and I happen to be in Tajikistan. Oftentimes, I'm very far from headlines. Oftentimes, I'm very far from what's really happening on the big political newspaper headlines, stages, performances, and all of big words that you talk. And most of my work at 2022 was with Afghans, and I was working remotely. So my mind and heart was with Afghanistan. But during that time, it was a springtime, so I really wanted to go and see as an observer. And guess what? I had a very beautiful camera that I thought I will just do some photo taking. While others were celebrating with victory and music and excitement, I saw something extraordinary. During that event, there were a lot of officials that would come through the road, and they were trying to be part of this big paracycling event, which was actually at that time in 2022 sounded big and looked big, but behind every big organization, specifically when it comes to sport, you would all know, those who are listening to me, the ones that are part of an organizing committee, there's a lot of behind the scene moments. So as an observer, just an observer who carried out a camera, and of course I'm learning a lot of camera thingy, while others were celebrating, there's like team after team that would come, and I personally didn't know how to take a sport event pictures, but I was capturing emotions of people, right? And something that caught my eye, and I call it something extraordinary. Brother Osama quietly went to the athlete who was in pain. I think his leg were in pain. He did not pose, he did not instruct others, how many we know, we are familiar with, how in Tajikistan, the big brother kind of trying to talk to the younger ones. None of that, none of the attitude I saw. But what I noticed, he knelt beside him, beside the athlete, and I did capture that in a camera. It was not a camera picture. He lost with the athlete. He was trying to talk to him, and he examined the athlete's leg, trying to understand how it felt, because it was a Paralympic championship sport, a bicycle sport, and something that I have never seen in Tajikistan and in Central Asia, because for Paralympic and para-athletes, the athletes that are coming with health issues or disability, one need to be extra vigilant to all the organizational standards, equipments, and all the sport standards that is required, right? We know that all. So Brother Osama actually went to the team, and there were about 4 or 5 guys around. So he quietly just looked and kept looking at his leg. And he quietly, without nothing, there was not an inch of mannerism or showism or, extravaganza showing off, whereas people are having an image in Tajikistan particularly. And I notice everywhere, most of the time when they hear that, Emiratis or Arabs, then there is a stigma attached to it. And the biggest stigma attached to this nation specifically is that, they have a lot of money. But I want to to my Tabilians, whoever listening to me and know in English, and the English a speaking world, whoever listens to me, I never looked at this that way when I worked in Abu Dhabi. I always looked at the human element. So Brother Osama kept looking at the athlete, and athlete was so surprised. It was a moment, it was just a moment, and I captured it through my camera. I call that particular gesture, kneeling down to the leg of the athlete and checking his pain, perhaps. I call it diagnosing, right? You have to diagnose what's happening. But in truth, it was humanity in action. As coming from a medical background, we always, when people give us descriptions, where's the pain and what's happening, we have a tendency to say, can I touch it? Where's the pain? Is it a chronic pain? Is it a mild pain? How else do you feel? So we need much more details of explaining to us what pain means. There were no doctors around. There were nobody around. In fact, there was a lot of noise around that his team won. But Brother Osama, he kept looking at that athlete. And I do have an image of that. So at the news, the heartbreaking news and tragic passing, this is a day for today's November 24th, and I keep thinking about it. He is not with us. He's not anymore with us. He is in journey. That's what we call in Central Asia. He is in his soul journey. But imagine 4 days after, when you are not with the living, people still talk about you. People still remember you. And as a sister, back home, we call people who show a character sisters and brothers. We still call each other sisters and brothers. And what was also interesting, in the middle of a high-pressure international event, cameras were everywhere. There was lots of oomph about it, lots of show-off about it, of course. But all I saw, not the spotlight. All I saw that he continued looking at the athlete's leg with concern, deeply thinking about how it would function moving forward. That moment to me is a powerful lesson, and that moment to me is a leadership. He was leading. People were looking at him. His team were looking at him. And remember, that was not his country. And remember, that is also a heart. I always call it it is Insanbardari, meaning we are all humans, right? Beyond the veil of, how we look and how we dress and what's the money, stigma associated, yes or no, and wealth associated to Emiratis, what I saw, he perhaps didn't have to do that, right? I didn't see of a Tajik that did it. Of course, I didn't see it, honestly. I saw in him that he actually went and he touched the athlete legs and checked if he's okay. So I carried that photo with me for 2025. And our family is in shock. Even my brother Ozod, Farid, Akmal, my mom, we offered immediately our condolences, the sorries, we remembered. And I kept saying, I have so many photos of him. Of course, with permission, I asked if I can do a tribute my way, because now I have a podcast. This is nothing to do with going viral. This is nothing to do with, honestly, this is nothing to do that I want to be most watched, most listened, and then, here, anyone who comes from Emirate to Tajikistan, and I am in the United States, and here I am, I want to take opportunity and talk about it. This is nothing. None of that. None of that is my identity and the legacy that my dad left with us. Brother Osama was there in our hardest moment. When our father passed away, he stood by my brothers, offering sympathy and brotherhood that crossed borders. Yes, he is Emirati. Yes, he comes to Tajikistan. Yes, he is with my brother. What a soul. What a presence. But further, his identity is attached with sport. He brought with him the unifying power of sport, a chance for youth to grow, rise, and belong. That is what I witnessed and what I will still always remember. And that's precisely I want to do a podcast about it. As a sister, and I'm sure many sisters are listening here, we are nurturing. And as someone is rooted in a heritage that values of compassion and dignity, we offer Sabr Jamil to Abu Osama, the mother, the sister, the family in the Emirates for this tremendous loss. May the journey of Brother Osama's soul meet the Noor-e Ilahi and dwell in eternal peace. But for those of us who remain here, I myself reminding myself, and I would like to remind and dedicate this podcast to others who are listening and to Tabilians who are listening, and I know they know English, although it is a Shugni. But I want to uphold to this level of kindness in a world increasingly divided and fractured. I offer my Sabr Jamil from the family to the family and to the friends who lost. It's a big loss. Amen.
قربان بها نرگس چشمک زدن را جانم بفدای لب شکر دهن را گل پیش تو ها مخت نازک بدن را بلبل زتها مخت شیرین سخن را گل پیش تو مخت نازک بدن را بلبل زتها مخت شیرین سخن را بنگر که زیباست رخ شوخ لطافت شمشاد قدت مارا که هارای قیامت هبروی چه قامت است مهرابه امامت قربان شوم و لمیا زنی راز که قدرت همچو تو دوری ساخه طریقت رمان رایه گل پیش تو مخته نازک بدن را بلبل ز تو مخته شیرین سخن را مرزا بدری روزا آن شای گرامی قلبی بدری توست یه بات است مقامی لایق نبود بنده لایق به غلامی هر جامعه بیچاره رسانده سلامی
نباشده
طرف چمنیه هوای بوستان بلالا وزار خوش نباشده